The Niger Delta Ministry raised concerns when it was initially omitted by President Bola Tinubu, but calls by various groups in the region last week to reinstall the ministry yielded positive results. President Tinubu reinstated the ministry and redeployed Abubakar Momo, an engineer from the Ministry of Youth, to head the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. His redeployment has been praised by some various stakeholders, including a chieftain of the All Progressive Congress in Niger State, Comrade Samuel Bello, who said that Momo will transform the region. Also, Asari Dokubo thanked the president, stressing that among all attempts to address the agitations of the Niger Delta region, the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs is a direct attempt and therefore plays a vital role in coordinating and implementing programs and initiatives aimed at promoting sustainable development, peace, and stability in the oil-rich region. Joining us on the morning show to discuss what the agenda should be for the newly appointed minister is Obong Victor Attah, a former governor of Akwa Ibom State. Welcome to the show, sir. Good to see you again, sir. I'd like to talk to you about this their region. You know, by extension, I'm a Niger Delta person. I was born in Warri, Delta State, so I'm a Niger Delta person myself. These are their region that has been talked about in the Constitution of Nigeria in the 60s for the need for development, but has not developed. What should be the agenda for this administration? Owing to the fact that you fought for a very pivotal part of resources coming to the Niger Delta, the resource control fight. Good to see you again, sir.
Thank you. Well, it's very difficult to define an agenda for the ministry. What we should define is the purpose for which any organization that's formed should pursue. Where I'm trying to tell you that there's a lot of confusion in the concept of development of the Niger Delta. You've got the amnesty program. You've got NDDC. You've got 13% derivation. Now you have the Ministry of Niger Delta. All those came about because when we start one thing, we find it is inadequate. We start another one, we find it is inadequate, and so we keep going, and yet we can't focus. I believe that ultimately, so it's sometimes good to start from the end to come back to the beginning. Ultimately, the answer lies in total resource control. And I don't see how anybody can oppose that. If we had our resources and nobody was stealing our oil as being done now, for goodness sake, the Niger Delta region would develop. But let's take them one by one. You see, you set up NDDC. I was there when NDDC was being set up by our president at the time. And I made a suggestion to the president. I said, look, you don't need a big bureaucracy. Just a few people in the presidency, 3, 4, 5, no more. At the end of the month, come and tell me, just as you do at FAC, how much is allocated to my state as a result of this NDDC thing. I will bring up projects to you. So don't think that I want to spend your money for you, or because it is my money, or it's the region's money. I'll bring projects to you. You award the contract if you want to be the contract awarding body. And I will supervise and make sure that those contracts are executed. And I thought by that method we will cut down the bureaucracy, the system will run smoothly, and at every month, just as you give money to the state to go and from fact to go and develop those regions, I will bring projects to you. And there'll be supervision. And all these questions of abandoned projects and so on would not occur. But the president thought, maybe it's better we set up a different organization. Okay, so an organization was set up. We went to see the first chairman of that organization, NDDC. And we tried to put to him a system whereby this thing could be run so that it will be smooth and run smoothly. And a very strange thing happened at that meeting. The chairman looked at us and said, look, I think we are talking at cross purposes here. And I will quote him. He said, the man who sent me here asked me to come and empower his supporters. Now, if that's the purpose of the NDDC, how can he develop the Niger Delta region? It is there to empower the person or the supporters of those who created the institution. You leave that, you start the amnesty program, when none of this was working, I will say this now openly. I wrote a memo when President Jonathan brought up the idea of, or before that, there was this idea of having an organization to bring out a program for the region. And that program that committee was headed by Lidum Miti. I wrote a paper in and said, look, what the British government did after the Second World War was to create new towns. At the time I wrote that paper, I could name 22 new towns that have been created already in Britain. And Gordon Brown, Prime Minister, they was talking about green towns, further new towns. We're going to do 12 green towns. I said, let's use the concept of new towns to develop the Niger Delta region. We could have a new town. The only new town I know in Nigeria, effectively, is Abuja. But that was done even without a new towns policy. That's why Wike is having problems today, because every minister that comes does whatever he likes because there's no policy. I said, let's develop a new towns policy and use that policy to develop, at least to start with 4 new towns in the Niger Delta region. We could have created a new town in Ogoniland. We could have created a new town in Bayelsa based on fishing. We could have created a new town in Akwa Ibom alongside the Bakassi port that we're proposing. And we could have recreated Warri into a new town. I said, at least let's start with those 4. But if you are going to do this, if you are serious about developing the Niger Delta region, you must have a ministry. This Federal Capital Territory could not have been what it is if we were depending on the Federal Ministry of Works to give it roads, or Federal Ministry of Health to give it health facilities, or Federal Ministry of Education to give it educational facilities. Create a ministry properly funded. Now, here, Momo saying you want to encourage him to transform the Niger Delta region. He cannot do it unless there's enough in the budget for him to do it. So there'll be a budget that will provide for works, for health, for education, for social amenities, all the other infrastructure that you need to develop a region. But that's not happening. Today, there's a fight between NDDC and Amnesty program about who should be awarding scholarships, who should be giving scholarships. We just have not defined what we want to do, and there's a need to define it. But ultimately, whatever we are doing is just ad hoc. The ultimate answer is in full and total resource control. I'll tell you something. People who oppose this resource control, they tell me they are Christians. And ask them, did they not read the story of the man who found hidden treasure under a field, and he sold everything he had to go and buy that field? It's because he knew that whatever is under that ground, so long as the ground belongs to him, belongs to him. But in Nigeria, we want to say that the oil in our soil, it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everybody. So everybody comes and steals it away. It does not happen that way. We have to accept fully the concept of resource control, acknowledge the fact that what is yours, but you'll share it, because that's the concept of a nation or even a country. We'll share it, but not because somebody will come and take it away and then give you what he thinks he should give you. No, that cannot work. So we have to go back and have resource control and get away from all these devices, because all these things, however you want to look at it, they are devices. Ultimately, the people must be given the opportunity, the means, and the facility to develop themselves. And that can only come through resource control.
All right. Thank you very much, Obong Attah. You have been on your mission for promoting resource control for a while now. I'd like to take you back to an interview you granted the Vanguard in 2022 when you were asked to describe the state of the nation. You had used 2 words, depressingly dire. I'd like to get your take on the state of the nation today, 2023. Do you still think it is depressingly dire? Have things improved? What would you say is the state of the nation currently? And then with regards to the Niger Delta, Engineer Momo, who is the new minister for the Niger Delta, has said that he's going to tackle uncompleted projects. Which projects would you like him see? Would you like to see him tackle initially or do in the immediate?
Now, I will ask you to do me a favor. Find me adjectives that can define something worse than desperately die or whatever was the expression. Because the situation today is worse than it was in 2022. Let's not kill ourselves. So that is the answer to that one. I do not only describe it as die, but even worse than it was in 2022. Now, the projects that I would like to see more tackled are not there. And I will tell you why I say so. For you to set up something like a regional development body, and that regional development body is the one buying school desks, drilling boreholes, supplying whatever, firewood, or just ridiculous things. That's not the concept of a regional development body. A regional development body should be developing major regional projects. Today we should be talking about a trans-regional railway line. We should be talking about that gives power to the entire region. We should be talking about a specialist hospital, talking about things that have meaning for the region. Not these little things, and then somebody tomorrow you say you want to do what is it, audit? What kind of audit they call it? To find out who stole money. It's ridiculous. That's why I said right at the beginning that we have not defined what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Good morning, sir, and good to see you. I'm so delighted and honored to have a conversation with you this morning, sir. You're one of those people we have quite a lot of respect for because of your antecedent. But let me jump very quickly to the question. The first one I want to ask has always been the resource control, because this has been on the table for so long. But while you were talking, I kept thinking about what you said earlier regarding the fact that there should be resource allocated to help the Niger Delta. And a quick Google will show you that I think it was 2022 that 1 trillion naira was approved 2 weeks to the end of a session as budget for NDDC, 1 trillion naira. And it's being a recurrent decimal in the Niger Delta that money is allocated and seem to have been frittered away or taken away by people who are supposed to be managing the money. Should we come to an agreement that there is a possibility that the problem of Niger Delta is not that of resources being or not being allocated, but that of the caliber and quality of people that are asked to manage the resources? What would you say to those who are making such allegations?
What I would say is that there's always a defense. They will tell you that that is on paper, but it has not been released. How do you know whether it has been released or not? That's the first problem. The second, you're talking about caliber. Who selects the people that go there to form the place? If I had my resources, and you allowed me to have resource control, I would elect the people that will go and administer that money, and they'll be accountable to me. Tell me who in NDDC is accountable to whom. As I said, the first concept we got was that the NDDC was created, according to the words of the chairman, to empower the supporters of the president. So who are we asking to account for what? So look, the whole concept is wrong. The way we are administering this country is wrong. It's totally wrong. When we had that parliamentary system earlier, we had a much better system, an accountable system, an inclusive system, and people could elect those they want to represent to govern them. But today, believe me, many of us don't even know who represents us, either in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. We claim, oh, when the day comes, we say, oh, I'm not the one that voted for this governor. If it's wrong, it's not me. Look, we have a situation that is not working. We have to wake up and admit that and change this constitution.
Obong, Attah, the people are the ones that we have to question. If, for example, in my local government, I did not vote for the chairman, and I say I did not vote for him, but I don't even know who won because I did not vote in the first instance, you will then begin to question my right, my moral right, to question whatever the chairman did. Now, the people who are representing Niger Delta in the Ministry of Niger Delta, they're people from that region. The people who are managing NDDC, they're people from that region. They have friends and family from within that region. Why would you not hold them accountable and make sure that even if the responsibility and respect is primarily for the president who appointed them, they're still responsible. They represent you. Why would you not hold them accountable, sir?
I want to, but how do I do it? Please tell me, educate me, how do I do it? The system does not allow me to make them account to me or make them answerable to me. That is what I'm telling you and I'm objecting to. Let us get a system that will make them accountable to those they should be accounting to. Not to the president, not to external bodies. So, it is this system that is wrong. I want to, believe me, I desperately want to hold them accountable. But how do I do it?
I'd like to come to you on a potpourri of other issues. I want us to talk about the NDDC. What's your take on how the NDDC should be run? Do you think the chairman of the NDDC should also be given executive powers? Because we've had a conundrum between MD and chairman and all of that going on in the NDDC recently. How do you think it should be run? What's the best model for it?
I don't believe there should be an NDDC. I believe my resources should be allowed, I should be allowed to control my resources and develop myself. That's how the Eastern region developed. That's how the Northern region developed. That's how the Western region, and later on the Midwest region. There was no NDDC. There was no such body or equivalent that who appoints that chairman? Who appoints members of the board? You send it to the Senate, there's a quarrel. For how long did we not even have a board for NDDC?
All right, so
I don't want to get myself involved in this. But then somebody will quote me tomorrow, but you suggested that this is how NDDC should be run. My own solution, there should have been no need for NDDC if we're doing the right things from the beginning.
All right, sir.
But NDDC didn't just start like that. Remember the days of UMPADEC before we evolved into NDDC. So you say we should not have any development commission of...
Please, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you since you mentioned UMPADEC. Go back to UMPADEC. What was the percentage given to UMPADEC? But in a kind of a manner you could not understand. The percentage kept being reduced. This president will come and change the percentage. That one will come and change the percentage. Is that how to run a country? Let me tell you a very interesting story. My former president would like to hear this. At the time, he was giving me 600 million to run Akwa Ibom state because he said I was not an oil-producing state. I wrote him a letter and said, I don't know whether this money you are giving me is a loan, a gift, or whatever. So I have no basis to prepare budget. Please, Mr. President, prepare budget for me so I can... Look, if a man is sitting there and doesn't even know how much money he's going to get the following year or a change of government which he does not subscribe to, and he doesn't know how does he even form a budget? Look, let's tackle this thing from the roots. Not from the top, because then we'll be very superficial.
All right, sir. So you're of the opinion that NDDC should be done away with. What proposal? So, the fact that...
Please don't say that. Don't say that. I did not. I said there should have been no reason for it to exist if we had done the correct thing in the first instance.
All right, so back to Ufai's question then. Even though there was no reason for it to have existed, it does exist. Your take on how it can be better run. Should the chairman be given executive powers? Currently, there's an NDDC and they're responsible for development projects in the Niger Delta.
Seriously, I don't engage my mind on things that have no meaning for me. NDDC has no meaning for me. I'm sorry. I have not thought about what should happen, what should not happen. What I think, if you ask me what should happen, is that we should have resource control, and then I can talk about how we can use those resources. But I had said earlier in this program that if there must be an NDDC, it should be a regional developmental organization doing regional projects. I named some of them. And that's what I think NDDC. However you want to select the person, however the chairman should be selected, whatever, Yeah, well, you can, or whether is that the responsibility of NDDC? Is that the responsibility of ministry? Is that, who is even responsible for the development of Niger Delta? So I quite honestly, have not engaged my mind on this specific thing of now that there is NDDC, what should the chairman do? But I can define what I think if an organization like that must exist, what it ought to be aiming at. Should be aiming at major regional projects to transform the whole region.
Okay.
Why should we have the sort of flooding that we have in those areas?
Obong, Attah, I happen to have been living in the diaspora for many, many, many years, and I have a lot of friends from the Niger Delta region. And the question quite a few of them have always raised when we sit down to have conversation is that, can you remember the story or the parable of the talents as told by Jesus regarding one man being given one and then another two and another one four? And you look at that and you look at the talent that's been given to the Niger Delta region, the state governors for starters, the amount of money that is allocated to the region in terms of FAC, and the amount of money that they have they done well for the region in your fair, just, and Christian mind?
The answer is no. Clearly,
have they
no.
done well,
they
sir?
have not. Many of them have not.
So if they have failed, sir, then giving them resource control, that means you put more money in the pocket of the people who have failed to manage little. What does that mean? It means you're giving them more to waste and fritter away. Isn't that the case, sir? I'm asking the question.
No. No, I will answer your question. The answer is no, you are not doing that. What is happening is that a lot of them have not done well because they don't feel themselves accountable. Or perhaps they feel themselves accountable to the parties or those who appointed them to those positions. If we have resource control, I would know exactly. If today, as I said, we don't even know how much money is going to the NDDC, because when you have the budget, they'll tell you it was not released. Half of that was not released. We would know. Those of us who voted for this man to go and be a representative, from among whom you will appoint the commissioners or ministers, from among whom you will appoint the premier or the prime minister, we would call him and tell him, listen to me, my friend, you are not going back there. We are removing you because you have not done well. Today you cannot do that. And nobody would therefore fritter away. And then the other thing about it is that when you have that system, there's the opposition party that's waiting to take over. So they supervise even what you do because they want to come in place of you. And so you find yourself being watched from every angle, by those who elected you, by those who want to take over from you. And believe me, accountability becomes your watchword. Because if you cannot go to in front of the public and say, this is how the money was used, you know you're in trouble. Okay, but this system does not allow anybody to be accountable for anything. So you don't tell me that we did not know how our money was spent in those regions when we had that system that we had previous to this one that we have now. We knew, and we could tell that we could say who was performing and who was not performing. So it's not a matter. The people that you have here are not sent by the people. They are sent by their parties. Let me give you a very good illustration. Somebody that fails to win an election as a governor, that means the people in his state have rejected him, becomes a minister. How will that minister, how will the people go to him and say, please, minister, come and do this for my state? I'm sorry. If we really want to look at this thing carefully, we'll know that we're in a very sad situation.
Real quickly, as we start to wrap up, sir, how best should this ministry of Niger Delta tackle the problem of environmental degradation in the region?
I think you have to have a physical development plan. A development plan was proposed. I think they brought some foreign companies. They did, you need so many hospitals, so many that, but that's theoretical. You need a physical development plan. If you have a physical development plan, look, the examples are there. New Orleans, Florida, and some other parts like that. Some of them are below water level. But you can, and a famous one in Holland.
Netherlands, Amsterdam.
You can drain, you can do channels, so, and those are regional things that you have to do. Those are the sort of things we should be talking about, not school desks and so on. So the environmental degradation has to be done from a physical development plan point of view, not theoretical, you need schools, you need this and so on. No.
All right, well, I'd say a very big thank you for your time. Thank you so much, about Victor Attah.